Welcome back, and on to social matters. In 2019, Dr. Tjirera earned his PhD in sociology from WITS with a thesis titled Writing Windhoek, Multiple Representations of a City. Now, this doctoral thesis is the main foundation of the recently launched book with the same title. Dr. Tjirera, a sociology lecturer at the University of Namibia, now joins us as we dissect his work and ask questions around the Namibia's socio-economic setup and how such society responds to each other as reflected in his writings. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, as a departure point, let's start with the work that inspired the theses. Maybe talk to us through how the idea was formulated and how you took it forward.
Okay. Well, I must perhaps start off by saying that I've been interested in the urban social life. And this really goes back to my undergrad. So I've always been interested in how people navigate urban life. So, for example, my BA thesis was on some young people in Babylon and how they navigate informality in an urban setting. And then at my master's level, I focused on an informal marketplace in Windhoek called Tjirera Mall, that you are probably familiar with.
Of course.
So I wanted to kind of continue pursuing that urban question in its broadest sense. So, so from Tjirera Mall, I moved on to Windhoek. So, yeah, I think that's really a short answer to your question. So I've just been interested in city life.
Now, your thesis, Writing Windhoek, Multiple Representations of a City, explores the relationship between the so-called informal traders and the authorities and how, in turn, this intersection is rendered in artistic forms.
Yeah.
Now, in brief, what are your findings without giving away too much of the book?
Well, when it comes to how bureaucrats at the city of Windhoek govern informal traders, for example, or street vendors, it became quite clearer that informality is somewhat only tolerated. It's not really something that is seen as an integral part of a city like Windhoek. So you realize that there's a great deal of heavy-handedness, for example. You would, for example, see in a book that I point to references where this heavy-handedness came to bear. For example, there was a young street vendor who was arrested for playing a guitar at the courtyard of the Post Street Mall. And this guy was just trying to make a living, you know, to get some money for his taxi to go to Unam. So this person happened to have been my student, by the way. There's other instance that I could perhaps point to where someone was arrested for selling biltong. Another one where someone was arrested for dusting off a car within the precinct of the city center. So I think those examples allow us to say a thing or two about how the city of Windhoek deal with informality. But I think that's just one of the strands that is in the book. So when it comes to artistic expressions, you realize that a number of, say, poets, for example, in terms of how they write about Windhoek, they reenact this kind of practices from, you know, the bureaucratic practices of the city of Windhoek. So they speak about issues of, you know, people scavenging in dustbins within the context of opulence. Yeah, so issues around segregation that I also touched on in the book. Yeah, and so much and so forth.
Now, Doctor, how important was turning your theses, you know, with all the rich information into a book?
Well, for any scholarly work, I think, to reach a broader audience, it is always important, for example, to have something like a book. So, I mean, if a thesis is in some digital archive, people hardly, you know, access that. So I think in terms of reaching a broader readership, that was incredibly important. But I think I also had somewhat of an easy job in terms of turning the thesis into a book. Because my thesis was written in such a manner that it had, various chapters that, standalone chapters as it were. So, of course, I had to update a number of things because some of the issues that I raised back then were overtaken by events. But yeah, but it still took some time because I remember from the point that I signed the publishing agreement with Basler Africa Bibliografien was around 2022, and the book only got published last year in August. So when we are, of course, launching it, we launched it this year. Yeah.
Now, just before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, I think I've said what I needed to say about Windhoek in the book. So I think I would just then, invite the reading public to buy the book so that we can continue with the conversation. Again, my book is just a modest contribution to Windhoek as an idea and as a social space. So once readers buy the book and they engage with the book, perhaps we can continue the conversation, because it could be that some of the things that I said in the book are mistaken. So the book is available at Bookden. It's also available at Exclusive Books and at Namibia Book Market. Yeah.
Now, you just recently had your launch. Maybe talk to us about how that went.
The launch went very good, I think, but perhaps I'm not the best person to say that. But in terms of attendance, it was a very good crowd. But yeah, it's a pity that we couldn't engage after the book launch, so there wasn't any Q&A. But perhaps once people buy the book and they want, some of the issues that are in the book to be ventilated, I'm, more than willing to have perhaps another discussion, because I raised quite a number of things in the book that some people might even find, uncomfortable. But I think that's the whole idea of scholarship. We have to deal with uncomfortable topics, ask uncomfortable questions, so that we can continue the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us on Namibia Connect this morning.
Thanks for having me.